So Lorne, like I saw in an interview one time, you were talking about how you wanted to make more adult games, and when you compare, your latter releases to your early releases, they seem a lot dark. And people are always like, "Oh, the games got darker," and you're like, "Well, the first games were dark compared to what came out at the beginning." Like now that all these incredibly dark games are coming out now, how deep are you going to go?
That's a good question, and I'm actually wrestling with it. And it's not like I have a budget, so the wrestling is minimal. But I'm looking at Fangus Klot, and that's a game where, as I get very excited about what I'm thinking about for the mechanics and all. And I want to build in, for this character, and I don't want to make the mistake that this is in production, right? This is just on a high concept table still.
You heard it here first, people.
It is not in production, damn it. But it's one that I'm wrestling with a lot at a design level, and I have a lot of what I feel is, right for it, and then I'm not sure how intense that gets at an emotional level, because I really want a deeper emotional bonding with the character and a more intense world and the struggles they're going through. And this one amped it up quite a bit at some levels that we haven't explored yet in Oddworld. So I'd be wrong if I didn't say I was concerned about how that would ultimately take, but it feels right to design. And I'm not the kind of guy that approaches that stuff for the sake of, violence or gratuitous or darkness. To me, it's all about messaging and great experiencing for people. A, on the surface, that it's a great experience, a simple story to follow. B, it's a whole nother level of subtext that people want to get into that. But C, and actually most importantly, is that it's a great playing experience, even at a superficial level. But this one would notch it up a bit, and I'd be lying if I didn't say I had reservations that I'm wrestling with myself on how far to take it. And I feel like they're justified in relationship to the character. They're not, torturing people, things like that. But it gets, there's cases that get pretty heavy. And I think games are inevitably going to go there more intelligently, the way that like Full Metal Jacket did as a movie, or, I'm going to Kubrick, but, Clockwork Orange, right? Like they were very smart, intelligent, incredible masterpieces, but at the same time, they did things that people weren't expecting yet. And, So I'd be lying if I said I was totally confident that they're always, warm and fuzzy. And, and I want to see more intensity. I think we're living in a more intense world today. I don't want to engage violence for the sake of that, but I do think, we're all feeling this need for a good fight. Yeah. And, and I'm not the one who's going to make, Marines in Fallujah game. Yeah. But so I'd have more of a different view of the whole spectrum of what's going on out there, and interpret that into, to me, making games and making stories is always about making modern myths, like things that are relevant to our time, not just for the sake of making money. It's always a critical factor, but because they resonate deeper and they'll stay longer with people, and they might have more value in the individual who's experienced them's mind over time. And Star Wars had that effect for me. Hobbit had that a lot of effect for the people at a storybook level. Certainly Animal Farm in 1984. Those, I read those as a kid, and they never left my mind. I probably reference them weekly. So I've always been into the medium possibility as, how can we make great playing gaming experiences? Because if we get away from that, forget it. Just get out of the business, don't bother trying. But how do we make great playing experiences that try to break new ground, that try to engage us deeper the way that, other forms of content have done at times, not just with our challenge and addictive factor in terms of, I'm challenging, I must succeed. Beyond that spectrum into, I really want to know what's happening. I really want to know what's going on with this guy. I really want to find out what happens and go through this journey with that character. And living in a more intense world today, we got Guantanamo Bays and all kinds of things going on. I wanted to delve more into that type of territory. And I don't mean torture, but I meant in characters slowly losing their mind. Yeah. In a world that's, making a lot of hardships on people.